Welcome to the session on understanding sweetness, organized by the European Food Information Council and the Hellenic Dietetic Association. Dr. Grigoris Risvas, President of the Hellenic Dietetic Association, and myself, Milka Sokolovic, Head of Nutrition and Health at the European Food Information Council, will be chairing and moderating this session. Let me tell you what this session is all about, and let me start from the beginning. Throughout evolution, our body was forced to develop adaptations to survive in the extended times of shortage and to store reserves in the short times of plenty. With foraging for food as our main job, our body was exposed to a high amount of physical activity and to very limited food resources. For our ancestors, in such conditions, sweetness was a good sign. Sweetness meant non-toxic, it meant an energy source, it meant satiety, and it meant satisfaction. In the meanwhile, we learned how to grow crops and animals. More recently, we learned how to mass-produce food, and we efficiently engineered movement out of our lives. That led to the situation where our evolutionary adaptations became pretty much useless. And this has led to an obesity epidemics of unprecedented proportions. Now we seem to see sweetness from a different perspective. Nowadays, in the media, all over the place, we get to hear that sugar is toxic. We get to hear that sugar is addictive. But then again, on the other hand, we get to hear that low-calorie versions of sweetness are not that sweet idea either. There are opposing views, of course, all over media again, and this is causing an enormous confusion among the public. There are calls in the media to take sugar warnings with a pinch of salt, suggesting that scaremongering messages cloud the debate about dietary patterns. But the problem is whom to trust. And as you can see here, sorry, the mouse doesn't work. As you can see here at the top of the graph, in providing reliable information about medical research, the medical practitioners are the most trusted ones. They are closely followed by the scientists, especially those funded by the universities. And you wouldn't be surprised to learn that the journalists have earned the least level of trust among the public. The trust in mass media has plummeted along the last several decades, and more specifically, the trust in science journalism seems to be pretty low. Only 28% of people, according to this recent UK survey, believe that journalists check the reliability of the scientific findings before telling their story. Only 16% of people believe that scientific journalists have adequate education. So, public praises science, scientists fault media, one way or another. In public nutritional controversies, balanced scientific opinions disappear, as Professor Vimsaris has rightly put. And that exactly is the idea behind this symposium, and that was the reason for organizing symposium. That is why we put together several brilliant scientists to tell you their stories about sweetness from different perspectives. So in the first part of this symposium, Professors Julie Barnett, Claude Fischler, and Julian Mercer will give you their views on the science of sweetness from the perspective of dietitians' attitudes towards sweetness, sweetness from historical and social perspective, and also from the perspective of addictive behavior around food, focusing on sweetness. In the next part of this symposium, they will be joined by Professor Jim Hill, who will answer your questions, especially on sweetness in relation to energy balance. And then we are also joined by two practicing dietitians from the north and from the south of Europe, Drs. Ingrid Larsson and Evangelia Fapa, whose views will be instrumental in translating this science and sweetness onto dietetics practice. Now, before I introduce the first speaker, I would like to give the word to Grigoris to tell us a few words on his view on sweetness and dietetics practice. Thank you.